Dan Waters, the writer of this new Nightwing series, I was not familiar with your game, because not only do we get new Kryptonians, but also a new Nightwing villain stronger than even the fifth dimensional imps. Yes, Mr. Mixapitolix and Batmite and all of them. It's insane. But this is AJ here at the Hero Informer, and let's get into it. Now, there is a lot of things going on in Blüdhaven at the moment, from corrupt politicians to new gangs to even a souped up police force that is using advanced weaponry. All of this, of course, being on Nightwing to try and deal with and sort through, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, that some heroes in a DC universe have an entire city unto themselves, because cities are big places with a lot of people, and it would make more sense for the powered heroes like the Flash in Central City, Superman in Metropolis, and even more so for the street tier heroes like your Batman in Gotham or Green Arrow in Star City. A lot of the times it's just not enough for one person to cover and carry all those threats alone, as even here in Blüdhaven, we see this new gang here upping their antics, now just going from normal humans with weaponry and whatever to turning into actual beasts and mutants themselves, injecting themselves with serums to mix venom like the drug Bane has and the Man-Bat serum all into one. So pretty devastating and deadly beast. Now, of course, Nightwing jumps in to stop this bloodbath that's about to happen between the police force and these new mutated creatures, but there's just too many of them, like a dozen souped up super strength creatures now aimed at Nightwing, getting ready to tear him limb from limb, as Nightwing even goes on to say that these skirmishes are becoming just all too common on the streets of Blüdhaven. He can only be in one place at a time. He can't just draw the fire of not only the mutants but the cops and everything else indefinitely and expect to dodge it all. You know, he's just human. He's not a super soldier or super powered individual. But not only that, but like I said, the police force has advanced weaponry also in the form of these robots, these walking tanks that now lock on a Nightwing, as even he says he barely even notices the wandering robot locking onto him until it's too late, until it's primed its weapons and about to turn him into a red smear on the street. But in that same instant, not even a second later, the robot is destroyed and collapsed, as if something faster than human came and destroyed it. But again, there's still the advanced police force and his gang of mutants here, ready to continue to fight and overwhelm Nightwing until the same thing happens, something as a blur whooshing by and defeating everyone within a blink of an eye. And as we find out, it's none other than Nightwing Prime, an individual with the powers of a Kryptonian. So yes, pretty freaking strong. But this Kryptonian Nightwing, or Nightwing Prime as he is known, if you're not familiar with him, don't worry. He's a relatively new addition to the Nightwing mythos and protector of Blüdhaven. Though truth be told, his origins is a little confusing and messy, but essentially Nightwing Prime was originally nothing more than a child, one that goes by Bryce Morgan, and he was changed by Nightmite, a fifth dimensional imp, in the same fashion that Batmite or Mr. Mixapitolix, you know, the fifth dimensional imps who regularly just change the DC universe on a whim. Yeah, they're that powerful. And here Bryce was reality warped into being this version of Nightwing, who Nightwing and Kryptonians or Superman have a really interesting history when you think about it, because the entire reason why Dick Grayson became Nightwing or took that moniker was because of Superman. But because Bryce Morgan, the child, the little kid, was at the wrong place at the wrong time, he got affected by Nightmite's power, and it kind of infused him and merged him with Van Z, the Nightwing of Krypton, essentially combining both origins and both people into one. So he's as much of a Kryptonian and having the whole memories of that sense as he is a little kid and having his own memories living on Earth. So it's a weird kind of joint new character, much like a Shazam in Billy Batson's situation, except he can't transform and this is just him. And they call him Nightwing Prime because technically he was the first Nightwing of Krypton many years ago before Dick Grayson took up the mantle. Though back in the present with Bryce, or Nightwing Prime as I should say, just being unleashed into the city, you know, he just leaves again. He doesn't really have an alliance with Nightwing per se. He just swoops in, does whatever and leaves, which is good, yes, that he's being a hero, but it's dangerous because a person with the mind of an 11-year-old, a kid with all the powers of Kryptonian, like who knows what they can do with that. Dick Grayson himself even knows this, but he isn't the only one, as he is visited by other people, by the entire Justice League, who wants to talk to him about this rogue Kryptonian just on the loose, forcing Dick to explain himself and the situation that Nightwing Prime isn't actually a Kryptonian, but he was a Blüdhaven street kid granted the powers by a fifth dimensional imp to just replicate the powers of Kryptonian. But the League here just tells him that yeah, they're aware and they're here to step in if anything gets out of line. But because Blüdhaven is Nightwing's jurisdiction and city, they're going to leave it to him for now. And if anything goes wrong, you know, they're stepping in at a moment's notice to get the situation under control, which I'm surprised they're even giving him, Dick Grayson, this much leeway, because the entire power set of Kryptonian, which can cause untold destruction worldwide, just in the hands of a kid, that's just a recipe waiting for disaster. But if there is any positive, it's that Nightwing knows that this kid, they have had some history in the past before all of the Nightwing Kryptonian stuff. Dick Grayson, Nightwing, knows exactly where he is going to go as he confronts and meets him at the cemetery. Because Bryce, before all of this superhero stuff, he was a kid caught running with the wrong crowd. Likewise, his brother was as well, who was promptly killed and shot in front of him by the cops. All this pent-up rage, aggression, and trauma, it would be so easy for him to go out and exact revenge on everybody who has wronged him, or just take it out on whoever he can, except he's trying to use his powers to be a hero. Though Dick Grayson didn't just come here to talk, but no, he came here to put an end to Nightwing Prime permanently, pulling out a antidote, if you will, a piece of Nightmite and the powers that turned him into this. A drop of the piece here would turn him back into the normal Bryce 11-year-old kid that he was before. And while of course Nightwing isn't forcing him to do this, as Nightwing even says, he's pretty sure Nightwing Prime could just throw him into the sun faster than he could even blink, so it has to be out of his own free will. Which this poses an interesting dilemma, because if you were in his position, if you had that overwhelming power, would you truly just give it up to become normal again, to become vulnerable and weaker? As he even goes on to say, like, yeah, he thought these powers were going to be amazing, and they were for a little while. He can do fantastic things now, but he also has to be super, super careful. He's scared. He can literally sneeze and kill someone. But he does continue saying that he wanted to help, to do what Nightwing does, to be a hero, to make the city better. But he also doesn't want to be another problem or issue for Nightwing and the city itself. So in the end, he does decide to take the potion, except this time, Nightwing almost sees himself inside of the kid, you know? He has had a traumatic life so far, even seeing his own brother dying in front of him. And now, with his abilities and amazing powers, he wants to do better, to become a hero, just like Nightwing did. He just needs someone to guide him, which is the exact thing Dick decides to do. He's deciding to now train the kid to be the best hero he can. Though while this is happening, while a new hero emerges in Blüdhaven, and one as powerful as the Kryptonian, as Superman, Nightwing still has this odd feeling inside of him, aching in the pit of his gut. The sense of something evil just out of plain view. Because yes, as we'll get to in a second, there is something lurking in the shadows of Blüdhaven that's going to be devastating and turn the entire city on its head. Though as we move over days later, we see Nightwing Prime is not only still in the hero business, but actually on the field with Nightwing himself. Though for right now, with him being super inexperienced and a kid, he is just in the sit and watch position, just to observe the real heroes and what they do. This time the hero's going after Killer Moth, who has a submarine, and doing whatever evil scheme he is trying to do. And it's kind of funny because he is coming here to Blüdhaven because, you know, Batman is too strong and overwhelming. So let's just go somewhere where the competition isn't as hot and overwhelming. So he comes over to Blüdhaven, even going on to say that it's just Nightwing. And Nightwing barely even has any cool gear himself. Unlike Batman, who has all the tech and billionaire status, whatever, which is pretty hot talk for a C-list, no, not even, just a D-list villain like Killer Moth is. Has he ever even done anything important or crazy? And even here is no different. Nightwing and Orko easily being able to hack into a submarine, get on board, and about to disable and take him in. The only thing is, he is working with the new gang here. Heck, he's the one supplying them with their serums to turn them into the venom man-bat creatures that they are, which is a new thing that Nightwing hasn't fully prepared and figured out how to take on, as he again is just simply overwhelmed by all of them, as they even drag him underwater. You know, Nightwing in this situation probably would have died, being drowned or even just being beat to death by the gang of mutated metahumans here. Thankfully though, at this very moment, he isn't alone, as Nightwing Prime finally decides to swoop in and snatch him up and save him. The kid even being mad that the situation even got as bad as it did. Like, he's a budget Superman, he could fly in faster than anybody can even realize and take care of the situation just like that. Heck, the cops couldn't even stop him if they wanted to. He's bulletproof, invincible even. But Nightwing knows all too well that being overconfident can get you killed, even if you have the stats and powers to back it up. So he decides to almost ground the kid, sending him back home and giving him homework to do. All while Nightwing sneaks off to go investigate another issue even further, because like I said, there's an evil brewing underneath the seams and in the city itself, something that eventually is going to connect with every plot point here. The situation at hand, beginning with missing children, 5 of them, all of them being under the age of 12, but there's no signs of struggling or foul play. It's like they just simply got up in the middle of the night and vanished into thin air. There was no other connection between these 5 random kids. There's no family, no friends, whatever, except they were all drawing the same thing in the weeks before they disappeared. Well, not just something, but someone. As we get our first look at the great evil that is going to be plaguing this entire city, and possibly even further than that, someone that goes by the name of the Zanni, as he's not really a someone per se, but something. He's an entity far more powerful than someone like Nightwing realistically should be able to take on. At this point though, Nightwing has encountered, or at the very least seen him a couple times before, though just in nightmares. So Dick Grayson voice and didn't even think he was real, but now seeing this in this situation, he isn't going to stop until he finds him. But just then, something rings out in the air and his gunshots onto the street below, which in a place like Blüdhaven isn't that uncommon or too alarming, nor something that the police couldn't just handle on their own. But it's not just the fact that Nightwing heard it, it's who else could have heard it and decided to go investigate further. Yes, Nightwing Prime. As yes, Nightwing was obviously correct. There's no way an 11-year-old kid with the powers to level cities and destroy mountains would just stay inside and want to learn instead of using his abilities to help. Him finding Killer Moth and the other mutants and deciding to step in himself this time. Nightwing even going on to think that in his short life, he has faced terrible things, loss, fear, poverty. Yet still, even given this immense power, he is doing his very best to help others. Though between his youth and the powers he's been given, he thinks he's invincible. And with Kryptonian abilities, like, how can he not? Heck, when Dick was young, he remembered feeling that same exact way, and he didn't even have a fraction of the powers and strength that Nightwing Prime does. Yet even still, Nightwing always knew when danger came and he was being fired upon, that's when he had to get out of the way. Nightwing Prime, on the other hand, doesn't think he needs to. On 99% of other occasions and circumstances, sure, he would be correct, but here is unfortunately that 1% where he isn't. Because recently, Superman punched a meteor in Earth's atmosphere that turned out to be made of kryptonite, meaning kryptonite isn't as rare of a resource that it used to be. It is pretty abundant, and a lot of people got their hands on it, including, as we see here, the advanced police force of Blüdhaven, meaning those with Kryptonian powers aren't as invulnerable as they once were, and Nightwing Prime just gets shot down thinking he could tank it, but, you know, being kryptonite, it just blew through him, a ginormous hole through his stomach. Nightwing, on the other hand, wasn't able to get to him in time and just watches as his body lays there on the floor smoking and the boy is slowly dying. Though again, like I've said earlier, this is a Shazam type of situation, as, you know, he is an adult and grown up in appearance, but he's still a kid, 11-year-old boy. So when he is dying for whatever reason, the same force entity that's been plaguing the other children, he isn't spared or any different. As just then they see it. They see the Zanni, this powerful entity that has now set his sights on Nightwing and Nightwing Prime. And previously, he was the one who was able to overpower Nightmite and set in motion the entire circumstances which gave Nightwing Prime his powers. Which just begs the question, if he is powerful enough and strong enough to overpower a fifth-dimensional imp, then what can Nightwing even do in the slightest? Now, you could make the argument that he was able to do that because the fifth-dimensional imp came down to the third dimension, which weakened him and allowed the Zanni here to get the better of him, though that is neither here nor there. But that is the end of this issue and the end of this video. As always, this was AJ here at the Hero Informer, and thank you for watching.